everyone, welcome to the channel again. So in the last video we studied about Alexander Pope. Alexander Pope told us that how nature and rules are same. He gave us difference between true wit and false wit. Then he told us that how little learning is a dangerous thing. After that he also told us that how sound must match sense to make meaning out of anything. Now in neoclassical age, today we are going to meet the another critic who is Samuel Johnson. Though Alexander Pope and Samuel Johnson both used to believe in neoclassical reason, order, rules, discipline. But still, Samuel Johnson had got completely different personality of representing things than Alexander Pope. So, if I have to compare between Alexander Pope and Samuel Johnson, then I would say that if Alexander Pope was elegant and polished, then Samuel Johnson was massive and forceful. If Alexander Pope wrote in perfect verse, then Samuel Johnson tried writing in thundering prose. If Alexander Pope was witty and sharp, then Samuel Johnson was argumentative and definitive. So today we are going to study about Samuel Johnson, and before going forward, we must know a little bit about Samuel Johnson. Samuel Johnson was born in 1709 in Lichfield, England, and his whole childhood was not that much easy because he was suffering from a disease scrofula. It impacted his vision and hearing. So because of that, he had a painful childhood, and all throughout the life he was in much pain. He got admission in Oxford University, but he soon left it because he could not afford the fee. So afterwards, he tried learning everything on his own, and due to his sheer hard work, sheer intellectuality, and sheer understanding of the things, he became so much popular that the whole age was also known as the Age of Johnson. So, according to the lens of criticism, we have two or three points which are important for us to know. First of all, he wrote Preface to the Shakespeare in 1765, in which he edited most of the works of Shakespeare. Then he wrote Lives of the Poets between 1779 to 1781. In that, he also talked about the criticism. And other than that, he also published a few of the essays twice a week for 2 years in The Rambler. That was a magazine. So we can say that he wrote novels like Rasselas, he edited Shakespeare, he wrote poetry, he even wrote a dictionary which he compiled the dictionary, and that took 9 years. So that was a lot to do on one's own. So before moving forward, we must know that Shakespeare plays a vital role in Samuel Johnson's life because Samuel Johnson edited most of the Shakespeare's work, and in Preface to Shakespeare, which was published in 1765, we get to know about that. And Samuel Johnson himself defended the ways Shakespeare used to write. Alexander Pope himself used to get scared that how he could defend Pope himself could defend Shakespeare's ways of writing because he was breaking all the neoclassical rules that were there. And French critics used to say that Shakespeare is a genius writer, but not a disciplined writer because he breaks all the rules that were made by the classical writers. Now, what were the rules? When we studied about the classicism, we got to know that there were some of the rules which were important to follow. Shakespeare broke the classical unities. He did not follow unity of time, unity of place, unity of action. He presented deaths on the stage, which was against the classical rules. He tried mixing tragedy and comedy in the one play. That was against neoclassical rules and classical rules. So Johnson comes in the picture and he says that okay, I agree that there were some of the rules that were made by classical writers. And how can you say that Shakespeare broke them? You can say that he took another way to describe these things. Now, first thing which you can understand is that according to the classical writers or neoclassical writers, what was important for them was to be true to nature. So Johnson said that Shakespeare followed nature and represented nature, human emotions, the way human feel, think, breathe. He followed nature. He represented nature in the most beautiful way, even more beautiful way than the one person who followed all the rules that were created by neoclassicals and classicals. We can agree that he took the different part. We can agree on that. But who told that these rules which were made were the real framework for a play to be perfect, for a drama to be perfect? These are the arbitrary rules. These are not the principles on which we can judge any work and say that this writer is doing wrong. So he defended that. Samuel Johnson defended that. So Johnson used neoclassical logic to break the neoclassical rigidity at the same time. Now, further, Johnson used classical unities to defend Shakespeare. He did not take example of unity of action, but he did take the example of unity of time and place. He gave an example of, just imagine that you are watching a play and it is going on the theater and you are sitting in the theater. And now while you are sitting in the theater, then you know that this is a play and I am not the part of it, yet you are believing that this is the play. Now, Johnson's point was that when the person who is watching the play, watching the drama, they can believe that we are sitting in the theater and this is the play which is going on in front of us. When they can believe that this is something real, then they can also believe that the time can shift as well. It doesn't have to be complete in 24 hours. The plays also can get shifted. So Johnson's view was, when the audience can believe that this whole thing which is playing in front of them is real, then they can also believe that the time and place can shift as well, because that is the real life. That is the essence of real life, that whenever an incident happen, then it gets shifted away. We show the people the disaster after the time passes by. It is just a leap of imagination which the audience has to do. So Johnson used this technique to show the audience, to show the people and the reader that Shakespeare was not wrong. It is just that his way of expressing things was different. Moving forward, the next point was business of a poet. So Samuel Johnson said that the business of poet is not to address only particular. Its main business is to address the universal. For example, if a poet is addressing grief, then the poet must not address grief at the particular point, that this is how the person is feeling. Instead, the poet should try to address the grief at the universal level, that what does grief lead to, how does it arise, what are the symptoms of it, how does it connect it to human nature, what weaknesses or what strength do we portray through it. So we should always focus on universal fact, because we are not going to read the particular text in the particular date, in the particular age. So it may happen that when a person who is living 1,000 years later will not resonate with the thing if a person is trying to write in the particular way. But if a person will try to write something in the having mind that it is going to be read by the universal, by anyone at any time, then that is going to matter a lot. That is the business of a poet, according to Samuel Johnson. So, if you remember, Aristotle also said the same thing, that poetry is superior to both philosophy and history. And the same thing has been made by Samuel Johnson as well, but in the different perspective. He is also saying the same thing, that you should keep your mind in universal thing, not in the particular. And Aristotle said that poetry is superior because poetry can acquire the universal thing. Moving forward, the next point is on judgment and genius. Samuel Johnson believed that a poet who is writing, he should be genius as well as he should have judgment as well. But if asked that what does he prefer more, then he preferred more on judgments. He felt that genius is a gifted thing. Okay, so if you are given moderate genius but very high judgment, then you can produce a tremendous work. But if you have been given tremendous genius but you have no judgment, then you will produce awful work. So according to Johnson, judgment is more important than genius. But if a person who is there and he has been gifted genius and he can apply the genius in the most beautiful manner, then by using judgment, because judgment can be cultivated, judgment can be learned, we can use this thing, we can cultivate this thing through our habits, through our systems. But genius is something which is gifted, either you have it or you don't have it. So with the mixture of both things, while having the judgment on the bigger side, we can achieve the tremendous and the most beautiful work in our life. So this was about preface of Shakespeare. Now moving forward, lives on the poets. Lives of the Poets, which was written between 1779 to 1781. So it is about the 52 English poets, and which includes Milton, Dryden, Pope, Edison, and many others. So you should take one thing in your mind, that Johnson was not someone who just blindly criticized any of the work or blindly read anything. He used to deeply read everything. For example, in the Lives of the Poets, when he talks about Milton, he does two things. First, he talks about the life of the poet. Then he talks about how he has been writing, how he has been doing things in his works. So when he talks about Milton, he praises him for Paradise. He praises Milton that it is the most wonderful work that has been done till now. But when he reads Lycidas, which was written by John Milton, then he says that the pastoral convention that has been used are not as good as we can do that. These pastoral conventions, they look that they are forced. Every nature imagery that has been attached in Lycidas, they seem that they are artificial. Dialogues seem artificial. So these were the things, these were the criticism, that this is the way which Samuel Johnson used to criticize any of the work. Now moving forward, he also talked about Alexander Pope. And about Pope, he says that he is the first person who used rhyming couplet in the most wonderful way, and he would be known by that. He talks about Dryden, that he took English language as a brick and left it as a marble, meaning that English language was something which was rough, but Dryden took it and make something in such a way that it looks polished and in more defined way. So this was all about Lives of the Poets. Now, the main thing that is left is that what was the purpose of writing? He does not say that it should give moral lessons, it should preach people, it should make people virtuous, like each of the writers, each of the critics which we have studied till now, they were saying. He doesn't say any of the things. He says that the writing should be in such a way that it should make people feel enjoyable and let them endure the suffering they are having. That is the biggest writing that one can write, because this is the most wonderful thing that a person can do, to let them enjoy while reading it, and then let them endure the sorrows, the joy, the sorrows, and the whatever the suffering they are having. That is the purpose of writing. So with that, we come to an end of this video, and that's it for today. In the next video, we are going to study about the romantic critics, Wordsworth, Coleridge, and John Keats, because you may have noticed that we are talking in Samuel Johnson about emotions, imagination. We are already changing the direction which we started from the classicals, rigidity, rules. And in neoclassical, Samuel Johnson is saying, defending Shakespeare, that okay, whatever way he is writing, but at least he is writing true feelings, true nature, true human feelings. So we can see that how all things are already shifting towards romantic writers, because romanticism is all about emotions, individualism, imagination. So that's it for today. See you soon in the next video.